Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I am your co-host Chad, but today our main host is going to be Jesse. And Jesse, sounds like you got something to talk to me about. What do you got?
So today we want to talk about revenge films and what makes them resonate with people, especially the popular kind. Revenge films work on many levels for a lot of people. It's something that we all kind of want in justice for ourselves, either through somebody else or through ourselves. And we're also going to cover more unique revenge films, and one of those is Nocturnal Animals.
Nobody gets away with what she did. Nobody.
Nocturnal Animals is a film starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Amy Adams, and many other actors, Michael Shannon as well. And it basically is two, A plot and a B plot. A plot is more taking place in the reality. B plot is the story she's reading that her ex-husband has delivered to her. And they haven't seen each other in maybe 19 years. And she's, throughout the story, you're going back and forth between these plots as she's reading the story. And in the end, the story is an allegory for their failed relationship. She doesn't really put one-to-one together throughout the film, but by the end, she realizes what this is.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the culmination. That's almost like the point of the movie, which is cool because there's so much restraint. That's like a word I would use a lot to describe the movie.
So before we jump into Nocturnal Animals, I wanted to talk about some more popular revenge films in a lot of people's opinions, like your John Wicks and your Kill Bills.
It's a little bit of a cowboy situation. It's like cowboy justice, basically, because I agree with you. I think that the root of the revenge stories is actually just justice in general. And so the revenge one's nice if you want to have a very clean, specific villain that the hero has to go and dispense justice onto himself. And that puts us into kind of the Western territory, where to me, one of the defining
vigilante.
Well, right. Exactly right. One of the defining features of a Western is basically that there's no law. The man with the gun is the law. And if so and so wrongs you, or if some kind of system or something is messed up, then you take your gun and you go out there and you dispense justice yourself. No one ever calls the police in a cowboy movie, and it's like, hey, I need to report a robbery, it's like, you go handle it.
They'll call the police, but the police won't do anything in their eyes, and so they'll take it to themselves.
And oftentimes the police are implicated themselves.
There's something gratifying for typical audiences to root for the hero, even though they're doing violent acts.
And that's what it is, right? Because you have to have some kind of you have to give the audience the ability to say, okay, I'm down for this, it's because otherwise a lot of times if you have like a John McClane who's killed a whole bunch of people, it's like, that's like a war criminal, that guy should be hanged. So
when we get to Nocturnal Animals, I want to talk about something that's, before we get there, when revenge is framed in a negative light instead of a positive light.
I would say probably one of my favorites is where it's kind of almost negative all the way around, is Old Boy. It's just, it's for anyone who has seen the movie knows that it's showing you the cost, just the deep cost.
Where people will go to.
Well, and also just how gross it is. It's not sexy. It's not, Keanu Reeves going around and shooting all those guys is a fun romp. It's like a popcorn. You sit down with your girlfriend and it's like, ooh, when you see him killing people, kind of establishing that, like, no, violence sucks and it's really, really ugly and you don't want to be around it, and you don't want to see that. And so even if you could maybe, come out of a situation saying that, hey, this is, what it took or whatever, it was still showing you a much more kind of honest look at what violence looks like. Very akin to like Michael Haneke, who does like Funny Games. Yeah, it's awful. There's nothing cool about the violence in Funny Games. It's not even fun like a horror movie is. Going around watching, Jason kill people is infinitely more fun than watching, like, Funny Games makes you feel sick the whole time, and it never apologizes, and whenever it tries to like wink at the camera and be cute or funny, it doesn't feel funny. Like, it doesn't ever work, because he didn't want it to. Like, that was the point.
Nocturnal Animals does a revenge film in such a different way than I've ever seen.
The other thing that's interesting about it too is that it's not necessarily obvious that it is a revenge, story, and they kind of do this interesting thing where, because so if you want to separate, A story, B story, or you could say like, real life versus the book, they get to do this cool thing where, because the main story is so subtle, so unbelievably subtle, like, basically real life level of subtle, that the book gets to be extravagant to kind of make, the meta movie that we're watching still have all the beats that a movie needs to have.
And the book feels very like Hollywood, like,
yes,
it feels very Western Hollywood revenge plot. And it's pretty straightforward, despite what you during our viewing thought it was going to go somewhere twisty, but it never does. It really just plays it straight.
I would also argue though that the value in the B plot not having a big twist is that that's not what this movie's about. It is about the main story, and that's where we do get that more conventional kind of like, oh, like that's, if you're gonna wait until the last 5 minutes of the movie to give you a some kind of revelation, then you want the person to basically have like their jaw open by the end and be like, oh, that's what all of this was about. Like.
And I love the allegory of the story itself, and being like Tony, the book version of Jake Gyllenhaal, is basically Edward's perceived weakness from his wife, that he was weak, he didn't do enough, and that he couldn't stop what's happening, which he couldn't do in his real life. He couldn't stop the marriage from failing.
I did not call you weak.
You said it before, so I want to say weak.
I did not say you were weak.
You're too weak. Too fucking weak. You're too weak.
And also the cop Bobby, which represents his kind of his what he wants to be, his take charge attitude, get shit done type of attitude, which he wishes he was.
Yeah, there's kind of an id and ego thing going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Off the record, between you and me, what do you want me to do with Ray and Marcus?
But what can you do with him?
Anything you goddamn like.
Is that because she's our POV character, you have this feeling that this is going to be a redemption story for her. So it's like she keeps talking about the mistakes that she's made and how she has regret and she wishes she could go back and do things differently. She all but exactly says those things to, her assistant.
Do you ever feel like your life has turned into something you never intended? No. Of course not. You just started living your life.
So that's what it feels like it's building to. You also see that like her marriage is crappy and that she has another friend who's kind of telling her, that, well, things are hard, but this is what it is, whatever.
So what right do I have to not be happy? I have everything. I feel ungrateful not to be happy.
There's something weird where it's almost like, oh man, in some kind of very unique, interesting way, it's almost like Jake Gyllenhaal was kind of the, I don't know, heroic force of the story. And this was actually his story, not hers. This was his revenge story on her. And he spends 0 time in the film in real time.
I don't give a goddamn fuck that you shot him. I'm glad that you shot him. I'm fucking glad that he's dead.
Then when she starts reading the story, she starts thinking about her Edward again and how, not what it is now, the complete opposite of what she had before, and she kind of misses him, his sensitivity that her husband lacks.
That's exactly what makes you so perfect.
You are going to be a great novelist because you have created a fictitious character in your head about...
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Because there's this big kind of revenge thing, and the very specific thing that happens is very small. So it's interesting because she is not painted as a very nice person, and she, admits this, right?
I panicked and I did something horrible to him, something unforgivable.
So, I mean, Edward's a little, he's a little snide too, like going through
absolutely.
all of this work just so that he can, stand someone up at a dinner. Like this is some kind of grandiose.
Exactly. That's why I said it's perceived as petty if you pulled the B plot out of the movie and just look at her story. On
a recap too with revenge films in general, it's like, yeah, you've got, the fun action romp, which is your, Keanu Reeves going around and smoking everybody and, or, John McClane, etc. kind of things, these cowboy movies. And then you have the more deconstructed ones like your Prisoners and stuff, where it starts to show you like, at least here's what the real taxes are of this kind of thing. If this was to happen in real life, Heller
spiral.
Well, and and again, Jake Gyllenhaal being in Prisoners as well, it's like it ends with he gets saved, but right before that, when Jake is when Loki is in the hospital talking to his wife, she's like, what's gonna happen to him? And he's like, what's gonna happen to him, like he goes to prison, like probably forever. But he saved his daughter, so it's like
he was successful.
Yeah, he could have not gone to prison and not had a daughter, so it's like that's a really it's also kind of interesting too, because it's also like the story about a man who did go do something about it, unlike Tony, in Nocturnal Animals. It's kind of interesting, like looking at those two as different sides of a coin.
Nocturnal Animals shows a revenge that's more emotional revenge than it is physical revenge. You don't commonly see that.
Yeah, it's almost a deconstruction of the revenge thriller.
It's a question of how serious you are about seeing justice done.
Hey, Jesse, where can the fans find you?
So yeah, I'm on Twitter. It is at J33_Apollo. and I should have a YouTube channel here up in about a month or so. So yeah, just basically content for various forms of media, movies, TV shows, anime, all that good stuff.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, hey everyone, thanks for watching, and bye.
See you later.
Taking us to the movie that we're back to now here is Nightcrawler. I don't think Lou Bloom was like a force for positive, good basically, and then he got corrupted because of the system.
Yeah. He was always, you can tell from the beginning, he always had issues. Like, instead of a fall from grace, he's falling upward.
Yeah,
getting what he
well,